We're going to go into our cash tag segment, and for that, we're going to bring in Landon Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. And Landon, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good to be here. Thank you, Alex.
Of course, and then also you're looking at JetBlue, so a little bit different than Facebook and Twitter, but still an interesting name, JetBlue.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of airlines reporting this week. There was one last week, I think it was United, that had a good report, up a little bit. JetBlue benefited slightly. But overall, I think this is a big week for earnings on airlines, and JetBlue is one of those coming up today or tomorrow. Sorry, after the market today or before the market tomorrow, I can't remember. But JetBlue, what we're looking for is when people talk about booking their flights or flying on the airline, and what we call that purchase intent. And, you know, we've seen that over the last year, purchase intent has been drifting lower, as has the stock. But what's nice about this chart is that you can see that in this first quarter, purchase intent's really starting to accelerate to the upside. A very strong signal for the company. They did report that March usage or March traffic was up about 8% year over year, which kind of agrees with our purchase intent data. But we've still got a lot of data on April showing that April's already off to a good start. And so some of that good news may be already baked in, but with the stock off quite a bit year over year, we do think there's room for upside here with good news potentially coming from JetBlue based on purchase intent increase.
Man, I'll tell you what, Landon, it's Tom here. The airline sector is so difficult to get a hold of because you think when the economy is doing well and global growth was doing well last year, these airlines would do great. They didn't. They keep on pulling the wool over our eyes as far as investors go. But there's trading opportunities out there. Now, have you seen from your sentiment data the pickup since they announced that they're going to start flying internationally over into Europe, possibly getting into that particular space? Do you see that affecting the positive sentiment as far as your data goes?
It's a very small portion. I mean, people generally, when they're talking about flying on JetBlue, they're actually talking about flights that they're taking right now, not just the new ones that are headed over to London that they just picked up. So once that starts happening, I think we'll see a little bit of an uptick, but I think that's such a small percentage, it's not going to really move the needle too much. Now, as far as happiness goes, what's interesting about this company is, 10 or 15 years ago, they were a leader as far as amenities as a low-cost airline. Everybody got a TV, you had more legroom, you got free Wi-Fi. And I think a lot of airlines are catching up with them in that regard, and so they're losing a bit of their edge. Their happiness has actually gone down from about around in the mid-70s to around mid-50s now, just because everyone else is catching up. But when you compare them to other airlines, they're doing really well. They're one of the highest as far as happiness goes at 55%, which is not saying a lot as far as airlines go. Incidentally, Spirit Airlines also reporting this week is about 30% happy. So people hate that airline, even though they love to fly it. So yeah, they're doing well with customers as far as happiness, and we're seeing an uptick in the first quarter for usage.
Yeah, and Landon, as you mentioned, Spirit, a little bit on the lower cost side, but Jenny's here as well. Jenny Horn, TD Ameritrade contributor. You have some stuff on the airlines too, but I think you have some stuff more, Spirit might be even in there as well.
Yes, so I looked at their announcement they announced on April 9th, these transatlantic flights, but this isn't happening until 2021, so not a lot of noise on social media really about it today. It kind of seems like it's so far away, people don't generally care about it yet, but people do care about the grounding of the Boeing 737 MAXs still. That's still a huge topic on social media. People still are really up in arms about the fact that not much progress seems to have been made. So that's kind of the overarching theme I saw with the airlines today. So our first tweet is from Main Street Trader, who says, Spirit is my top airline pick. Beautiful under the radar revenue growth story. Good call. Also no Boeing MAX, all Airbus. So this is kind of the general theme I saw today, but what really happens if the 737 MAXs are out of the equation for the rest of the summer, which is airlines' peak season? I mean, how does this really impact all of the airlines?
I think this is a big bonus for JetBlue as far as not having any of the 737 MAXs. If you look at what American Airlines canceling 90 to 100 flights, a day or a week or something like that, and then you're seeing United disrupted. Southwest is a big one because they have the most planes. So I look at it that way. But I've never seen anybody say that they like Spirit Airlines as far as flying it. It's like a shoebox in there, isn't it?
Well, Spirit's, as we said, a little bit more on the discount side, so you're always going to have the demand as the lower cost alternative. But Me being one that's a little bit more partial to a Southwest Airlines just simply because where we are in the region, it is interesting that you note about 10% of Southwest's fleet is that 737 MAX, so that has affected them more than some of these other airlines. But when looking at something like a JetBlue, Landon, they're a little bit more regional too, and they're a little bit more on the East Coast. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, and like Tom pointed out, they don't have any of the 737 MAXs. So I think the longer that problem continues to persist for the industry, it's got to be good for JetBlue. People want to fly, and if Southwest is grounding flights or other airlines are grounding flights, you got to pick a different one. And so if JetBlue can benefit from that, then that's fantastic for them. Obviously, as a consumer, I hope this gets resolved, but I think for the company, that's got to be good news.
I think as far as airlines, legroom has gotten less and less, so Spirit's not so bad anymore.
It isn't?
I mean, you have no room on airlines anymore. But I mean,
I'm so tall, I can't.
I was going to say, me and Landon might have a different understanding of what legroom is on airplanes. But Jenny, what was the second tweet that we got?
Yes, so our next tweet is from Tony Greer, who says, if you read about the selling I anticipated in Delta Airlines in the Navigator this morning, you're enjoying this beatdown from 3% to unchanged as much as I am. The airline charts are so vulnerable. So, I mean, we talk about airlines so much and how they move so much in tandem, it seems. So with Delta and United have already reported, what could this mean for JetBlue? They report tomorrow pre-market.
Well, I look at it, Landon, to your point, you said that their March numbers were pretty good, but I look at it on the other side because I always look at capacity first as far as, their March traffic was up over 5%, but capacity was up 12.6%. And Kevin Hinks and I always say that C word that they use, the airlines use, capacity, is if that is starting to increase, that's not a good sign. Typically, like a lot of investors will start selling it if it's outpacing their growth numbers. I'm not sure. Do you guys look at that at all, Landon, when you look at your data?
Well, I agree completely with what you're saying. Obviously, our data is only taken into account when people are talking about flying on these airlines or booking flights. So that's what we have to look at. And we know the first quarter's off to a good start compared to the sort of a downtrend that we saw in 2018. Now, as far as the movement goes, this has got a pretty good movement priced in, I think just over 5% expected move. And if you look back on the history, it hasn't moved that much very often. It's done it once and it was big. So I think this is more of an average. So you've got to be careful with what the potential move may be because that's a larger than average move that's priced in.
Hey, Landon, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to take a look at JetBlue a little bit later on in the show.